Hi, I'm Ishani and I'm passionate about creating content that educates and inspires the growth minded youth who are hungry to achieve their goals. And on this YouTube channel, I do exactly the same. I share video podcasts of my first step ever. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google, or Apple if you love listening to podcasts, or else you can subscribe this channel where you can see the entire podcast. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome on my first step ever. It is so exciting for me to find out such people who have just followed their heart or who have been through different challenges in their life and finally found the purpose and found themselves along the way. And today I'm so excited to honor this my first step podcast with presence of an extremely enigmatic personality, and I really love the work that she does because I'm also a big fan of what she does, and so am I stepping into that area as well. So please join me welcoming Rachel all the way from Australia. Rachel, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for that warm intro. I'm really excited to talk. I love the whole idea behind your podcast. And yeah, it really stood out. So love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. And first of all, for being here, giving your time so that you can share your story, which is extremely important. Sharing your story, sharing your challenges with people who can really find some solution or actionable steps from your experiences so far. So I think that's a great thing that you're doing today. So Rachel is into video storytelling, and she also helps people with camera facing, camera coaching, which is very essential, I think, in today's time. So let me tell you a bit more about Rachel. As I said, she is a video storyteller and a camera confidence coach, helping people overcome their fear of the camera so they can get their message out into the world to the person who needs to hear it. Exactly what she's doing right now over here. So she is teaching you what she does by the way of action. And I think that's the best thing that someone can do. Also, I would like to say that she runs a video production and training business called That Camera Girl. And I think that's a very interesting name. So I think let me just begin by saying that I would really like to know, Rachel, how were you when you were in your younger days, probably let's say school? What kind of a person were you and what shaped your mindset at that point in time?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question to think back. I was probably more of an introverted child than I am now. There was a couple of different parts to that though. Like I was a competitive artistic roller skater. So on that side, that's very kind of out there and showy, but I think, when I was at school, maybe I felt really introverted. So it was kind of like a bit each way. Like I think I wanted to be like out there but I also was, being a teenager, especially like battling that kind of shyness. So I, you know, I would say the person that I've become just over the video experience for myself has really kind of brought me out. I definitely consider myself an extrovert now, but I'd say I've done a total 180 of what I was when I was a child.
That's actually quite interesting because I think one side you were doing a sport that really needed to, be out there because you fall and then you get up and you're really putting yourself out there. And the other side that you mentioned, you were an introvert. So how did you balance that off, or was roller skating a way of letting things out and go past your comfort zone? Is that how things were for you?
Yeah, it definitely took me out of my comfort zone, and it took a lot of years to be able to, I guess, express more of the artistic and the showy side of it, because I looked at roller skating from a very technical point of view. Like all the steps would be perfect. Like the technique was really my strong point. And then it took such a long time for my coaches, like my friends that have encouraged me to be more expressive and artistic. And I think that definitely helped me come out of my shell, because it was about performance and it's about being artistic, but it was just also trying to, come out of that shy state. And I think doing that as well really helped me, like later in life, be able to be more expressive, because it's like the foundation, the things that you do when you're a kid. I think it really, you learn stuff from that you use in later life without even really realizing it at the time.
That's quite interesting because I think what this shows is that if someone is really keeping to themselves at the early age of their life, which we don't even come to, that we are an introvert, we might not even heard of the term introvert in many places, or we know that we're introvert and we keep beating ourselves up, just, oh my god, I'm an introvert, or maybe I am an extrovert, am I just doing over a bit too much? So we are giving ourselves these tags, I feel, at the very early in our life, which is, I think, something that we really need to work upon and see ourselves as a person that we are and start accepting. What I really like in your journey is that you took a step, which was, you took a sport that you liked, and for whatever reason at the beginning, but you kept at it, and in a way that gave you a segue to, show your emotions to yourself, to understand yourself, and maybe overcome a lot of fears that you had at that point in time. Talking of which, I would really like to know, at that age, when while you were growing up, so many things happen, was there a particular fear or a mindset that, kept you from going ahead, like it really limited you in ways?
Absolutely. And, I guess the concept of self development, it wasn't really something that I understood as a kid. And I'm so heavily into that now going into an adult. This probably comes just from being like a hormonal teenager as well. I wanted to be the best and I always strived to be the best at whatever I did, but I had this kind of, I guess there'd be limiting beliefs around what I could actually achieve. And it definitely held me back, I think, going into my first job. And my first job in the industry was a camera operator and editor for news. And so I was in the camera field. It was what I wanted to do. And, I'd excelled through school academically and through uni academically, but there was something holding me back with actually really expressing my ideas and taking the lead. And not understanding the mindset stuff then, I think that is what helped me get over that later in life. But it's just that constant battle between what I would call introvert, extrovert, wanting to express myself but not wanting people to think my ideas are stupid or not respect me. And now I'm going into this industry, and I was the youngest person in, like, out of all the camera operators in that region, I was the youngest. I was a girl. Like, I didn't feel like people would respect me, but that wasn't necessarily true. So I think that in the beginning held me back, and I was afraid to express my ideas and take control in a situation in that role. But just kind of having to work through that, when you're off on your own, you don't have guidance in your first job, you got to make the decisions. It's kind of like, there you go, sink or swim kind of thing. So I had to draw from past experiences of, okay, I need to step up, I need to take the lead, I need to do it in this job. And it's a process to work through there, but almost being like kind of forced into that in my first job kind of forces you to get over yourself and just do what you have to do. And yeah, there's a massive learning curve there, coming out of the nice, safe, university and schooling experience into the real world in your first job.
Lovely. I think firstly, I would like to congratulate you for being the youngest camera person out there, because it really shows a lot about you making some new changes in the industry, or maybe from the place that you are. It is like setting a bar high, or inspiring people to, you can do whatever at the age that you want. So I really want to congratulate you for that. Now that you've come to your job, your first job, and you were talking about your teenage days, there's a time in between, which is, I think, a very turbulent time. But I want to understand your thought process, or your, how you were at that point in time, I think, at your university. So, from what I know, that you've studied film, television, and radio at the University of Southern Queensland in Australia, which is amazing. For you, were you very, very sure from the very beginning that this is what you want to go ahead with? And if yes, or if not, how did you, make yourself muster the courage that you want to do this?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I did have a moment in high school when I was, feeling like I have to choose what I want to do with the rest of your life. And, that's hard when you're 17 years old. And I actually chose media, doing like film and TV at school, as a blood subject because for whatever reason, I couldn't fit in the other subjects I wanted to do there at the same time. So I was like, look, I'll drop this and I'll do media because my friends are doing it. And that'll be my my bludge. And then I just loved it. I loved playing with cameras, and I never really thought of that as even being a possible career. And I loved, making little film projects when I was a kid, but it was like, oh, this is just something you do as a hobby. And when I got to choosing my university preferences, I thought, let's just do something to do with video. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know I just want to pick up a camera every day for the rest of my life. So it was just kind of all of a sudden, I just knew this is what I wanted to do. And I'd been stressing and debating what to do. Maybe I was going to have a gap year, like all the way up in my final year of school, and thought, I'm just going to go for it. And, pretty much taking the pressure off, and I'll just do it and see where it takes me. And yeah, that's when I chose to do film, TV, radio at the University of Southern Queensland. And anyone in Australia, it was an awesome degree because we were really, really hands on. So I did get to pick up a camera from day one. And,
Lovely.
for the next 3 years, I was just filming every day, every project. I was like, I'm going to be the camera operator and, just put my hand up for everything. So, yeah.
I think it's great to know that you like something back at that time. And I think what I really want to highlight over here for our listeners, that when Rachel got to know that she's interested in something which was maybe just video at that point in time, that is all she knew about. But she went ahead with the gut feeling. She showed much confidence, believed in herself, and said, let me give this a go. We'll see what happens next. And I think you've blossomed beautifully because now you run your own company and you train people. I'm sure you must have not seen this coming at that point in time. Yes, I think I just got the nod. But this is a very beautiful aspect about humans, which I would like to emphasize over here, is that, as I mentioned, you just knew about one aspect and you said yes, you had the confidence and you went ahead. So from there, Rachel, while you were, we'll just talk about a little bit about your freelancing days. As you said that you were so interested about, using the camera all the time, you put your hands up that I am the person who will do it, and you had the confidence. And every time you do something, you gain more confidence out of it. Are you able to share your top learnings from your freelancing experience? And even while you were doing freelancing, did you think of starting your own business at that point in time?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that contribute to this whole journey of freelancing and getting to the business now. And in the back of my mind, I always had this idea that I wanted to run my own business because I'd seen my parents do that. Like my dad had his own business, and then my mom had a bit of an art business on the side. So I just had this idea that how cool would that be to run my own business? And that was going to be like a long term goal, though. That was something that I'd work towards. So I left uni. I had my first job as a news camera operator and editor. And I figured out, within 1 year, that was not the job for me forever. And one day, I got to the end of my journey in news, and there were a few things going on. And one day, I just quit my job. And I hadn't planned to do this. I had no plan of where I was going to go, but I can't do this anymore. And I just quit. And I got home from work that day, and I was living in this beautiful area in Australia called the Sunshine Coast. And I got home, and my housemate was like, "Oh, how was your day?" And I just didn't really have any words. I was just "Oh my goodness, what have I done? I can't believe I've just resigned. What am I going to do with my life?" And for me, that moment is what I would really call that is the first step into coming into the business that I have now, because I knew that I wanted to do something more creative. Still, I didn't know what it was, but I was just going to make it happen. And, I loved where I was living. I thought, worst case scenario, I move back home with mum and dad, but I don't want to do that. I want to try and make this work here. And I want to have control over my life and how I spend my time. And a business would be the best way to do that. And so, for the next few months, I just went and asked people for freelancing experiences. So I just looked up video production house, Sunshine Coast, in Google, and I found all these different companies that were operating in my area and in Brisbane. And I just asked them if they would take me on for like a day, a week of like work experience, just anything. I could, hold a light, whatever it is, I would be there to help for free. And one awesome company actually replied to me on the same day, and they said, coincidentally, one of our guys has resigned yesterday. Do you want to come in and meet us? And, to cut it short, I'm still working at that company sometimes today because they took me on, they gave me a chance. And, it was that plus other freelancing experiences that I just asked for. If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. So, don't be afraid, just ask, because the worst thing that can happen is you're in exactly the same position as you are before you've asked. So, yeah.
That was a very interesting story, I would say. And I think you took a very brave decision of quitting your job. And I can definitely understand your feeling the day I think maybe nothing made sense to you at that point in time. But it's so interesting to see how quickly I don't know if that was a quick decision or you took your time to, I just want to ask that, did you take your time to think through how will you start your business, or that was a very quick decision that today I quit and next day I'll start looking up for jobs? Was it that way?
I, I guess I'd say it was pretty quick because I went straight into survival mode. It's like, okay, I've quit my job. I've only got enough money to last me, X amount of time. So
Yeah.
I just have to make this happen. So literally the next day, I was just thinking after I'd, sat on the floor and questioned my life for a few hours, I was like, okay, I need to make this work. And I guess I just like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to get more experience. So it didn't really come from, I want to start my own business straight away. It was like, how can I get more experience so I can be good at what I do and just practice my craft and move more in the direction I want to go? So then I looked up companies that were doing the things that I really wanted to do. And if I could work for those companies, that's a step in the right direction. So it was really just, I need to do something in the right direction, no matter what it is at this point.
Lovely. I think what we are hearing right now, I want to say this to all my listeners, is that when you think of doing something, be it a job that you want to take up or even want to start your own profession, what Rachel really have, I think that's a golden tip that you have shared, is to work on your craft, because a person is going to hire you or hire your services for the talent or the unique selling point that you bring to them. So working on it is very important. I think that was a great strategy to go ahead with to get more experience if you feel so, and then starting to offer. Everything happens step by step, and that was very interesting in your story. So thank you so much, Rachel. It was really, really lovely understanding your entire story from your early school days to the beautiful person that you were, and I think you're still very young, and you're doing. And I think you have a business at a very young age. That is amazing, because I think you found something that really wanted to do. Just one last question I wanted to understand. So once you were there, honing on your craft and you learning your skills, how did you get the training, or how did you understand how the business works, or were you a bit familiar as your family was into business?
Yeah, I was lucky to have that like backing and support, because my dad had all this knowledge already about how to run a business, and then just working for other people. So specifically in video, how to run a video business, I was just really observant to what they were doing. So I was to offer my services and skill to do the camera work, but I just have always been a really observant person, I suppose, and just watching like how they did things, how they spoke to clients, how they lined jobs up, and just asking the questions. Once you start to build a relationship, you're not going to walk in on the first day and ask, oh, so can you tell me a little bit more about how you run the business, but you build a relationship with that person that you're working for, and they're going to be open to answering your questions if you're genuinely interested. So yeah, just learning from people who are already where you want to be. And if you break it down a bit further, it doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's like 10 years down the road where you want to be. There's going to be a gap, a learning gap there. You want to find someone who is like where you want to be in 1 year or where you want to be in 2 years, and ask what they did and how they got to where they are now. And yeah, things that they would implement in their business that you can learn from straight away.
That's an awesome, awesome tip. So, working on your craft, observing what people are doing of the age that you want to be at that particular age, as Rachel just mentioned, and also just to have the confidence and build relationships. So these are very, I think, building blocks of starting your own business or starting your own services that you can provide to others, which is amazing. Now that we have the camera girl in our house, in our studio, my first step ever, I would like her to share just top 3 tips on how people can be confident in front of camera.
Absolutely. So, look, the first and most important one that people really don't like is practice. You have to practice and you just have to do it again and again. And it can be really simple. So, I tell people just get on an Instagram story and talk to your audience. Share a quote with them, share a tip with them, share what you're doing in your business that day. But just talk, because then you get used to hearing yourself talk. And it's a really easy way to practice. You don't have to set up anything crazy. So, practice. The second one, once you have done a few videos, edit them yourself. So, it's really a great idea to outsource as much as possible, but edit your first videos yourself so you can watch them, you get used to seeing yourself. And I'm not saying look at it so you can pick it apart and be really critical, but it'll help you see what you like and don't like about being on camera. And the third one would be find someone who you really love watching on video and just them, and then make yourself notes, like handwritten notes, like why do you actually enjoy watching them speak? Do you think they're charismatic? Are they really passionate about what they're talking about? And then practice replicating those same things. So you make a list of what you love about other speakers, you jump back on your stories or jump back on your camera and practice it yourself, and then you watch it back and go through and just refine doing it. It's like any skill at all. Speaking requires practice. If you do this periodically, every week, you are going to get better and better. And before you know it, you're going to be making videos and feeling confident all the time.
Lovely. Bang on. So much value out of these 3 points. And I think my favorite, I would like to say, is the one in which we practice on your Instagram stories, because that is so simple. That is really very simple. And I would say that because I really love being on camera and speaking and interacting, but still I had that inhibition. When I went on my first Insta live and when I did my first few stories, when I really had to talk to my audience. So it takes a bit of a courage, but if you do it every day, it really helps you. So I really like that, Rachel, what you just mentioned. It is easy, yet it takes practice, but it will definitely help. So thank you, Rachel, for being on my first step ever. And every time we close any episode, I always ask my guest speakers to leave our listeners with a thought or a saying that they really resonate with.
Saying that I like to share with everyone is you need to have solid systems in place, because if you rely solely on motivation to do that, motivation runs out.
Wow, that is so powerful. And I would really like to say that in this past few months, I have been interviewing a lot of CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs and even people who are doing very good at the job. And this is one thing that has come up repeatedly, having systems in place. So that is a very, very good thought or a saying that I think you're leaving our listeners with. Have a motivation, but have systems to back that up, because that is what going to last long. Thank you, Rachel, for being on my first step ever. From Brisbane, from Australia, that camera girl joining on my first step ever. It was amazing to have you and to speak to our viewers, our listeners. I'm sure they have really, really gained a lot out of it. And if you want to follow this camera girl, so I'm going to leave all the links in my Instagram channel, and you can learn a lot about her career. And before I take your leave, I would just like to say, start believing in yourself and keep believing in yourself. Ooh, that was an amazing episode. If you've learned something out of it, something that inspired you, put down in comments below what you really liked and what would you like to listen to more. And before leaving this channel, if you feel like you would like to listen to more of these, like, share and subscribe. You know the drill, and also press the bell icon so that you can hear the notifications. See you until next time.